It is now my great pleasure to introduce our next featured speaker, His Excellency Juan Carlos Pinzon, Minister of Defense of Colombia. Minister Pinzon was appointed to his current cabinet position in September 2011. Prior to that, he served as Chief of Staff to President Juan Manuel Santos and Vice Minister of Defense under President Uribe. Before joining the government, Minister Pinzon held a senior advisory position at the World Bank and also held several executive positions in banking and finance in Colombia. In 2001, the minister was selected by the World Economic Forum as one of its young global leaders. Last October, at the Center's conference in Bogota, we were very honored to have Minister Pinzon as our featured speaker. We are delighted that he is with us again today in Miami, so please join me in welcoming Minister Juan Carlos Pinzon.
Buenos días. I understand I'm not supposed to speak in Spanish, so I will try to do my best in English. Sorry for my constraints in language. Well, thank you for this invitation. I'm very happy and very honored to come to this very prestigious 8th Latin American forum that is organized by you, Susan, and your center. I think is very important. I understand every year many issues on regional concerns are discussed, and I feel happy to have the opportunity to come this year. Discussing on Colombia, and I was just in the coffee break meeting several people. I understand that most of these attendants will know a lot, and in some cases even more than me, on specific issues in the case of Colombia. So I was planning, when I came to have a historical presentation on what is going on in Colombia, what has happened, where we are, and trying to explain in detail how we did it. But I think here, you know it. So I guess I should change a little bit the subject and focus on what might be of interest right now on where we are and discuss a little bit on the future in security terms and in regional affairs. As you know, we have been changing the country strongly with a serious efforts and with real results. The country is quite different from what it was 12 years ago, 15 years ago. This is a story of a process in which I think 3 administrations have put everything in that effort. President Pastrana, with a strong support from the US, President Uribe, on its 2 administrations, did a lot of effort, and President Santos, as a former Minister of Defense, a very successful one during Uribe's administration, has become a president that is moving forward an agenda not only this time in security, but trying to have a broader agenda on social issues, on equality issues, and at the same time, making Colombia not only this time so focused on our internal problems that are still serious and efforts that we have to continue to tackle, but at the same time, trying to have a peaceful influence in the region to promote democracy, to promote freedom, to promote market economy, but at the same time to promote social and economic policies that not only spur productivity and businesses, which we strongly believe in, but at the same time promote policies that can bring in poor people, policies for reducing poverty, policies for reducing inequality. So I think that this is a little bit of a different way of looking to the Colombia picture right now. Now, if you see it from security perspective, I can tell you that certainly we had maybe our worst point in security terms around 2000. By that time, we had regional drug cartels, we have self-defense forces funded by drug trafficking, and we have the largest ever terrorist guerrilla organization in the history of Latin America, the FARC and the ELN, absolutely funded by drug trafficking. At that time, people could say that 30% of the country was in hand of one group, 30% of the country in hands of the other, and what was left in relative control of the state. I think that getting to that so low point was the situation that in some way led to the Colombian people, not only to its leaders, the people, to say, we cannot accept this anymore. And suddenly, we start to support governments, the people, decisions that have been changing the country. So from that point, when Plan Colombia, I would always be enthusiastic about telling American audiences, you should look at Plan Colombia with historic perspective, because I'm not an expert on US policy and I should not even comment being a minister of other nation. But I can tell you that from what I know from US policy, that's one of the policies that you can claim as a bipartisan US policy success. Because in practical terms, results are there. It changed the country with a very low investment. And when I say low, is that the US have not invested more than $7 billion in 12 years, 13 years. What was investment in any other security effort as compared to this? So it makes sense, you know, too low a cost for so high results. Certainly, what happened was that, as I said, was the Colombian people, was in consequence the Colombian leadership that has pulled the decisions, the policies, the risks to change the country. Now, since we start Plan Colombia, increasing our air mobility, our training on special operations, intelligence technologies, counter-narcotics efforts, and cooperation in general, we have been changing the kind of threats we confront. So by 2000, anyone could, or I can tell you, our estimates from our intelligence services imply that FARC was 21,000 in arms, and there was an estimate of something like 20,000 on militias. So those are high numbers. By now, I would say by 2010, 2011, they were around 10,000 militias and 9,000 troops, what I would say armed terrorists. By the end of 2012, they are for the first time less than 8,000 in arms. They are something like 7,800, and around 9,000 militias. This shows how much we have decreased them, how much we have now in the current administration, it regained some momentum a year ago, in which we were able to accelerate again, because I have to confess, by 2009, 2010, 2011, these guys kind of found how we were confronting them and kind of recover a little bit. By the end of 2011, we put in place a new plan, Plan Sword of Honor, that's how we call it. And in summary, that plan launched a national offensive on every base area that these organizations, I'm speaking for FARC and ELN, still hold. And that is what is going on since then. The importance of the offensive is that for the first time we have been able to, learning from our past and learning from our successes, include all the ingredients to fight these structures. So let me explain. For a long time, we were just fighting the armed structures. During the Uribe administration, we moved from there to fight HVTs, high-value targets. And we were successful. Actually, President Santos was very successful doing that. And we began to discuss on what we call consolidation policies, which is really doing what is critical in Latin America and in Colombia specifically. Not forgetting that we need to include, with effective social policies, these areas that are kind of disconnected from development. So we start to discuss on that possibility. I have to tell that during that time, I was vice minister and was more a speech than effective policy. Now, on Sword of Honor, we do these two things that we do well: fighting armed structures, fighting HBTs, trying to put in place that speech that is a very reasonable one, very well accepted, but we have to make it now effective. We have to make things happen. And this is what we're trying to do now with some like 720 projects of development in these 10 areas where we launch our offensive. But we're doing two more things. We are not only fighting drugs, as we did for a while, that I have to tell you, drug trafficking in Colombia currently is 30% of what it was 10, 12 years ago. So that has drained the resources for terrorism, for criminality, and for several violations of rights in Colombia. But criminals are criminals, and they are dynamic. So what they've been doing is to getting the funding on new sources, like criminal mining, like extortion, and local, we call it micro-traffic, which is getting the drug not as they did in the quantities of the past to other nations, but trying to make our young people become consumers. So we are now developing a strategy for each of these sources of funding, as we have been doing effectively with drug trafficking, as you know. And then we're going after the militias for the first time. With the leadership of Justice, the Attorney General Office, the National Police, not so much military effort, and the military on support, we are making all the legal processes to judicialize all supporters and collaborators of the terrorist networks of the FARC and ELN. By applying all these elements of the strategy, what has happened is that we were able to push again, to pressure the FARC and the ELN. And in consequence, they have lost their top leader, they have lost their top military leader. This has happened in the past 19 months. By the way, today is my 19th month as minister. So, we have been able to, cut that level of leadership. We have been able to cut 33 other commander top level of the FARC in the past 19 months. We have been able to capture more members of the militias than ever in this process. And demobilization, which we believe strongly enough on that kind of policy, has picked up in the past 5 months. We are getting almost statistically 4 to 5 daily demobilized, which shows deterioration, complexities. Now, someone can claim, have these people been able to increase terrorist attacks? In 2012, they did. Actually, they did because we went and pressured them. And the answer was explosives. But how many municipalities are really affected by that kind of situation? I'm going to give you this number. Colombia has 1,103 municipalities. Out of those, only 11% in 2012 were affected by a terrorist activity. And those 11% of municipalities are located in those areas that we discuss as base areas in which we have launched our offensive. So their reaction is more defensive, is not strategic, and the only intention at the same time they have is not only to get rid of the pressure in tactical terms, but at the same time to show some kind of a strength due to the conversations in Havana. But the strategic effect is none. The effect in the population is almost very, very limited. So to end this first part, I can tell you, we are in this peace negotiations policy led by President Santos, in essence, because of our military success, and in essence, because we keep pressuring them as hard as we can. The only thing I regret is not to pressure more. That's what I get paid for nowadays, to keep the pressure as high and as strong as we can. Because victory in counterinsurgency at the end is a peace in which is the nation, is the democracy, what lasts, and is the terrorists that gets back their weapons and in somehow denies violence once and for all. And this is what this country, our country, needs. We are having a wonderful progress in Colombia. As you know, foreign investment numbers are extraordinary. As you know, numbers on reducing unemployment are very remarkable. As you know, public investment is at its peak. The macroeconomic indicators are very positive. Some very important publications internationally have discussed about the Colombian economy and the Colombian environment as one of the most positive and with more potential for the years to come. So imagine if we can, after defeating and keep the pressure, because that's what we're doing, get rid of that problem and put away that situation. I think President Santos, as a leader he is, as a successful commander-in-chief he has been, giving the FARC the toughest blows ever, and as president, leading us to the toughest blows ever to the FARC, to, as I said, the top leader, the top military leader of that organization. I think he understands that the next step he has to continue, is precisely not only solving the problems of the country with the use of our tool of strength, that we have it, and we continue to strengthen it, but at the same time, using the tools of political affairs and diplomacy and other policies. And this is what we're doing now. We are not denying, we will never do, the legitimacy of going after criminals, going after terrorists, going after those that have threatened our country and our people. We will keep doing that. But at the same time, there are other policies and other tools. And that will, I would summarize, is the current strategy. Pressure, and at the same time, offering a faster exit. My personal opinion, I've been saying this for a while, is that in Colombia, the conflict against the terrorist organizations will last some months or no more than 5 years. Because if these guys do not understand that this is maybe their last and only opportunity, and I think some of them understand that, what will happen is that they will continue to get affected, weakened, and they will get into a point of not being something different than a criminal band, which in some way they are. Now, let me speak on the other problem we have. The heritage of drug trafficking cartels, the former paramilitary, and what we call the criminal bands. Criminal bands in the past 15 months have been decapitated. None of their leaders is anymore the leader. In some of these groups, the guy that was the leader a year ago was cut, then the guy that took over was cut, and then the guy that took over after the other two was cut already. So we are really neutralizing the existence of those bands as we knew it. What we call criminal bands? Criminal bands we call some kind of mafias that can have national command and control, that can influence several parts of the country, and that can use rifle, guns, rocket launchers, and even uniforms to control areas. Those kind of criminal bands are at their last stage. They are disappearing of the country. That's good news. But as in any other country, success in security brings new challenges. When you break a national criminal band, as we're doing, you get local bands that were commanded by formers now fighting for their own existence, their own territory, and fighting among them. That's what we're seeing lately. So we are now developing more judiciary and police strategies, not anymore military strategies as we had some years ago, to confront and tackle these kind of problems. And this is what we're doing. Very specific interventions to break some of these bands that create some security concerns to the people in the areas where they have influence. Now, the other problem that we have currently is what we call street crime. And I keep telling the people in my country, I might be the only Minister of Defense in the world to discuss on street crime. Street crime is not an issue for ministers of defense. The reason is simple. In our system, national police is part of the Minister of Defense. We do have under our umbrella the Army, the Navy, inside the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, and the National Police. Having a national police has been critical for the progress in Colombia. It has been very important. When I see other countries in the region suffering for problems that look alike, the problems we had 10, 20 years ago, one of the things that I see, for instance, is the lack of having a national unity of command for the police. And that is a problem. In our case, it has given us a very effective tool to fight terrorist organizations, drug cartels, and organized crime, as I described before. But in a country like Colombia, where the nation has suffered so much for security issues, not now, the past 30, 40 years, people is sensitive about security. What I like now, but it creates a problem to me, doesn't matter, this is what we're here for, is that in the past, if I go back 5 years ago, even when I was deputy minister to President Santos, what people was hoping and expecting was us to hit the terrorists and us to affect the criminal bands. Well, people still want that to happen. They like every time we, get rid of one of these bad guys, or we capture, or they demobilize, we keep weakening them. But the regular Colombia, we have 47 million people. I can tell you that around 40 to 42 million people do see terrorist activity as a TV news outlet issue. They don't feel it closely anymore. But they do feel extortion. They do feel uncomfortable for street crime issues. And that's currently their main concern. So when you go and ask the Colombians, how do you feel in security terms? Certainly, they know that the country is quite different from what it was. They recognize the progress of the past year and a half in terms of pounding more and more these organizations, but they are saying that they don't feel so comfortable or a little bit insecure. And the reason they are associating to their security problem now is street crime. So as I said before, it's very bad for the Minister of Defense, because I get to put in a way my acceptance to discuss it in a way if people feel more secure or not. And if they say that they don't feel secure for street crime, well, still that is my problem. So we're developing policies for that, strong policies. We're increasing the police. We're increasing the police in 20,000 men. We are increasing our concerted efforts with Attorney General Office. And we are enhancing the technology and capabilities of the police in terms of more mobility, in terms of more technologies to fight that kind of crime. This is what you do. And I think we are starting to have good answers with very specific cases in the country. Now, when I explain Colombians how is street crime in Colombia compared to other countries, that's where things become interesting. Just to give you a number, last year we have 15,000 homicides in Colombia, the lowest number in 30 years. Well, we're supposed to have a conflict. We're supposed to have organized crime. Yes, we have been defeating them or reducing them, and we have street crime as any other country. Well, there are countries in the region that are supposed not to have conflict, not to have criminal bans, but they have 20,000 homicides and have almost only 60% of our population. I will not say names, but you can imagine, you know? And there are several countries that you can compare. When I look to cities, Bogota, our capital of the nation, Bogota has 16 homicides per 100,000 rate, which is the kind of rate typically you will use to measure the level of homicides. Well, if I compare these to Santiago de Chile, to Montevideo, or to some counties in the US or Europe, we do poorly. We really need to keep going to get into one digit, that number. Just to give you one idea, 5 years ago, Bogota was at 30. It's at 16. So look the trend. Look what we're doing. Now, when I compare those numbers to peaceful countries, or at least countries with no conflict, cities like Recife, cities like Baltimore, cities like Detroit, you know, Caracas, Monterrey, let me tell you, we are far better, far better. What I want to imply is that we are tackling every security problem we have. The terrorists, and we have a very comprehensive strategy, as I said. They are there because we are pressuring them. This is why they are in peace talks. And if we get to peace in Colombia, it will be because our military and police put them where they are. We are really weakening and taking to a different level the organized crime as compared to what we have before. And we are tackling now the street crime as the new concern of the people, but when you compare this street crime in relative terms to other parts of the world, we might be even better than many places. With this, I want to tell you, maybe Colombians are in a more secure environment than they were. Maybe they will be in a more secure environment in the future than they are, because these policies will keep producing results, and maybe this will allow Colombia to continue to evolve, to continue to have economic development and economic progress, to continue to fight poverty and inequality in an effective way. That we need to do. We cannot let that kind of speech for a reactionary left or for extreme sectors of democracy. Poverty and inequality is the real subject of public policy. And we need to create prosperity, but that prosperity should pull, in our case, those Colombians on those faraway regions that are in need. And this is kind of the very important element that we're discussing right now. I think that Colombia, on this, going back to security and leaving this as a final idea, is ready to help support any other nation in the region or out of the region with our experience. We are increasing our partnership with the US, not anymore just as recipients of support. I will continue to remind you that it's very little support as compared to what has been done in other places. And compared to the return, very well taken, by the way, the support we get. But the kind of partnership we're doing right now is to become partners to other nations in the region, to Central America, to the Caribbean, that are starting to suffer or getting more difficult conditions in terms of their security challenges. And we're ready to support, and we're ready to do anything that is necessary. We believe in cooperation as a key tool for success in security or in any other area. We are putting our eyes to guarantee that Colombia keeps the strengthening that we have seen of our armed forces in the future. But that strengthening, of course, to be used against transnational crime, against those threats to peace and stability, and particularly to contribute to support other nations with a very strong commitment in the respect of human rights, in the legitimacy of the employment of our forces anytime we have to do so. I try then to make a summary, Susan, on explaining a little bit where we are, why we're doing what we're doing, and maybe giving you the final message. Let's keep all of you partnering with Colombia. I think it's a good bet for everyone. I think it's a country that will continue to have progress, and in strategic terms, we will continue to aspire to become a nation that promotes democracy, that promotes development in a very peaceful way, but with a very strong commitment. Thank you all.